it was apparent that we lost the Columbia and we had problems with the 737 MAX because people were afraid to raise their hand. And so the first thing you have to do is recognize when that's a problem, but now how do you transform the culture? How do you make sure that you develop a culture where people feel safe to speak up?
Hello everyone and welcome. We are today here at Valamis headquarters in Joensuu, and it's a real honor to host a really special guest here, Charlie, a former NASA astronaut who has spent his career pushing the boundaries of exploration and learning. I'm Jari Järvelä, the Chief Visionary Officer here in Valamis, and I will be guiding our conversation today. So I'll ask Charles a few questions and he will share his personal experience and reflections with us. So welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jari.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. Having fun in Finland.
Sounds great. Welcome back to Joensuu and thank you for being here. And let's start with the EPIC Challenge program a little bit. So looking back at 10 years, what made the EPIC Challenge program special to you and NASA?
Well, we came up with this idea for an EPIC Challenge after the Columbia accident. And I was training in Russia when that happened. And I realized when I went back to the United States that the people at NASA Johnson Space Center that made the decision made a very bad decision. And I was always puzzled, how did they do this? Why did they do this? How are we training our engineers? Is there a better way to train engineers at NASA? So we developed this pedagogy and we taught it to young NASA engineers. It was more based on problem-based learning, and we called it the ICED methodology, Innovative Conceptual Engineering Design. And we said, you know what? I think we could use this to teach students. We started teaching in the United States. I met Jari Järvelä from Valamis during that time. You had this learning platform. And we said, why don't we take this program and teach students in Finland? Totally different culture, totally different way of learning, totally different education system. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, great, thank you. and as a former astronaut, and talking about the EPIC Challenge program, so what did you personally take away from working with these students, innovators and partners like us on the program?
Absolutely. We learned so much because what was critical to students learning and different ways that students learn. So we brought in other people from Boeing. That was the chief learning officer from Boeing. We combined it with people from NASA and with people from your organization. And we said, well, let's see what inspires students to learn, and can we analyze that learning? And can we improve how students learn, how quickly they learn, how to do it better? And so we analyzed the students' performance, and using you as a partner working in that platform, we were able to then use the students as kind of our guinea pigs, our test subjects, and we were learning from them.
Solving these EPIC challenges in EPIC Challenge program, we work with the students, but what would be like takeaway for, like, let's say corporate learning, corporate training from that? Is there any
well, it's directly relatable.
Yeah.
You know, because what we did was we had engineering students, for instance, in one organization where at the culmination of all their learning on the 4th year, they have what's called a capstone program where for 2 semesters you use everything you learned and you try to design, build and fly an innovative aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicle. And so during that process, the students are learning from experts in industry and experts in academia, experts from NASA, and we're watching the students use these tools and we're watching how they use them on teams. Because whenever you solve a problem, it's not one person solving the problem in these organizations. It's hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And so we're watching them use the same processes that they would use in industry, going through the same product development life cycle. So it's mimicking what they would be doing working at Boeing.
Yeah.
And so all the information we're gathering and analyzing on these students' behaviors is very similar to how large organizations would actually perform and behave. plus the students were distributed geographically around the country. So they were forced to use a learning platform. And just like a large international corporation, you have people around the world. How do you do that effectively? And so it was a lot of information. So the algorithms that we're developing for learning and analyzing that information would be directly applicable by building those algorithms and verifying them with students. You then take that to the large corporations.
Yeah.
And because large corporations fail because of culture.
Yeah.
And when that happens, like a Boeing right now, wouldn't it have been nice if they had all their engineers on a nice learning platform? We were analyzing that behavior over 20 years, just like at NASA, and you could watch and analyze that culture, and you can identify key problems before they happen.
Yeah. When we talk about innovation, solving complex problems and so on, what advice would you give leaders today on building a culture where people feel safe to speak? So the culture of safety and challenge assumptions.
You know, in my book, Mission Out of Control, in the first half of the book, it talks about how NASA lost its way, similar to how Boeing lost its way. And the real cause of the accident was a cultural cause. And the second half talks about, well, how do we fix that problem in the culture? And what we learned was when you have large teams or thousands of teams working together or an organization, if you don't have a psychologically safe organization, it affects all those other attributes of how a team performs. It was apparent that we lost the Columbia and we had problems with the 737 MAX because people were afraid to raise their hand. And so the first thing you have to do is recognize when that's a problem, but now how do you transform the culture? How do you make sure that you develop a culture where people feel safe to speak up? And that's where you develop the learning. And you use the learning part of the program to teach these new behaviors and teach them not just by taking a course on it, but actually practicing it in your organization and then using a learning platform in your analysis and using AI to analyze what those teams are doing. Because when you think about it, if the organization is not psychologically safe, people are afraid to raise their hand. But if you're training AI to look at these behaviors and in the communication on these teams, and it's showing red flags that nobody gets fired. You can't fire a robot.
That's a good point. So AI is sort of like it's spotting these trends, what is happening, like how people feel safe and so on, doing the analysis behind the scenes there.
And it's learning.
And it's learning, exactly. It's like invisible agent. You don't feel negative against someone who is saying you this because it's an AI. It's like machine.
You have to go back to looking at the data. Well, I have the data here. AI is showing you this is how you were talking. You were the boss, and so I could identify from the communication and based on how people were talking that you have this status in the company. Why are these other people that are communicating you, why is it very negative this way? And not this way?
Exactly. Let's jump a little bit on skills. So like looking at our customer base and what they're looking for a learning platform is a means to like upskill and reskill themselves and also measure the skills and see, okay, what are the skills gaps in the organization, what is actually the skills and talent in our organization. So how do you see skills based on your history on NASA, for example, on Epic Challenge and so on, what they mean for you and how would you utilize this?
Absolutely. So this is what we learned from working with the student teams. What we do with the student teams is, first of all, you want to understand what's the proper mix of that team for the problem and the mission and the type of problem. And I talk about that in the book, right? So you analyze all the skills and you make sure that the teams have all the right skills to prepare them to be as successful as possible, right? And so the other thing you want to do is then you monitor those teams to see if they need another skill. As they're solving the problem and they have questions and they recognize that they needed a new skill, can you now use that skills management capability to look within the organization and find just the right person to answer the question? And we talked about this. Why is that important? Because the people that were making the decision for Columbia as to whether or not when they saw that large piece of foam strike the vehicle on launch, is it safe? And the group of people that made the decision did not have the right skills, did not have the right knowledge, so they didn't know.
Yeah.
And instead they said, it's not going to be a problem, as if they knew the answer. And so if you had AI and it's interrogating this team and the critical decision that was made, it was obviously an uninformed, not intelligent decision because you didn't have the right people to make that decision.
I think that's like an extreme example.
That's an extreme example. Life and death is on the line.
Yeah.
But it also helps tell the supervisors what he's hearing from these people. Did they think about it properly? Did they have the right team? Did they have the right knowledge? How did they share that knowledge? Was it psychologically safe? Did someone disagree on that team? And did the rest of the team hear that disagreement and adequately answer that dissenting opinion?
Yeah. Once again, like back to the psychological safety kind of like thing. Yeah. Let's talk about like continuous learning and knowledge sharing for organizations. So how important it is for organizations to share the knowledge and innovate safely and responsibly?
So when we form these, what I call high performing teams, right? And I used to work in a branch that we were coming up with very innovative ideas. And we were doing research when I was a researcher. And so we had about 15 people, and we were allowed to think of crazy ideas, share those ideas, evaluate those ideas together collaboratively. And so because most of the problems that any of these large organizations solve are multidisciplinary, and you have to work interdisciplinary. So you have different people with different skills on the team, and you want a diverse team to make sure you have the right skill mix and knowledge mix, but you also want to share that knowledge. You want the entire team to learn, because most of the issues happen at the intersections of those disciplines. It's not just a structural problem, it's also a thermal problem, because the thermal causes loads on the structure. And so I was a thermal structures person, but then we have aerothermal people on the team that understand what causes the loads. Is it the entry heating? And so you understand a little bit and you're learning about it, and that helps you when you want to come up with the solution to the problem that's a breakthrough solution. It happens at those boundaries. So that cross-learning, that cross-disciplinary happens in a team. And so you could do that person to person, but yeah, wouldn't it be great if you can call on that person at any time, or you have a corpus of knowledge that you can accumulate and curate using AI. And oh, by the way, if you're not sure, you always have a physical person that you could talk to.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and like especially like we talk about like multidisciplinary teams, like really different like skills, different kind of expertise and backgrounds. And how do you make this work? How do you not make this work so that the collaboration is seamless? So is it like sometimes this works and sometimes not?
Well, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? And so what we did with those student teams with Valamis and Boeing, we had 100 students, right? And so we're analyzing the behavior of those students and how they're communicating on the team. And so we used parameters like energy exploration and engagement to understand, is this team communicating properly? Is everybody actively engaged? Are they exchanging information? Are they doing it equally? Is everyone in the team talking to everyone else? If they don't know something, do they feel comfortable going outside and getting that information? So you're watching how that team behaves, and imagine if you're now using AI and you develop a chatbot like Valbot we had in those days, and it's monitoring that communication. It could basically say, you need to ask so-and-so a question, because so-and-so didn't answer. Or imagine if you're using the visual cues, if you have cameras and you're looking at facial recognition and you're analyzing the emotions, and you see someone has a question but they're afraid to ask. Ask that person. And so you're teaching them the habits, how you want them to behave on that team.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes you forget you're just two people actively on the team asking questions back and forth, answering, and you're not engaging with everyone. You're not bringing them in. And if you don't have a moderator at every team meeting, that's an objective person that's saying these two people are dominating. And so you do that naturally. You have an agent that helps you.
It sounds interesting, and once again, like really good way to utilize AI, utilize the data as well. If you could share one message with the next generation of engineers, scientists, and innovators, what would it be?
Wow. Well, the thing that I learned, and the cause of all the hardship at NASA, not the loss of life, which is terrible. And when you look at the 737 MAX, we lost 343 people, 2 airplane accidents. And you look at all that damage, and it was all caused because of the change in the culture. A lot of times we zero in on the technical proximate causes of the accident. And what we found out after the Columbia accident, the accident investigation said the major cause of this problem was culture. Then the Boeing tragedies happened. And they found out that the major cause of that accident was the corporate culture change from an engineering-based culture to a financial business management culture, looking at the bottom line, schedule and budget. And how do you correct that is very, very difficult. And so NASA lost life, Boeing caused loss of life. Boeing lost tremendous loss of money, over $40 billion. And they're trying to recover, and they're trying to understand, how they're going to recover. You look at Starliner, one commercial airline business, then you have the space business. Starliner had major problems. It's all because of the culture. And so now, it's very difficult to do, and usually it's unsuccessful, is trying to change that culture back. NASA failed 2 times after Challenger and Columbia. They're still struggling. Boeing is struggling big time. It could mean a total loss of an organization. And so imagine if those organizations had the tools that we want to develop, that we were talking about this morning. If they had those tools and could determine a priori that this team is having a problem, because usually these problems don't happen immediately. They happen over years. NASA lost its research culture over many years, but we see things wrong in the organization. Technical problems, anomaly, foams coming off. How do you put together the right team rapidly to analyze that problem properly with the right people and solve it before you kill people? And so by using AI and using collaborative platforms like this, we can identify those weak signals that no one else sees. And we can identify it's a technical problem because they don't understand it and they're making a bad decision, or it's a bad behavior. And we could fix it within that recovery window before it becomes a problem. Because the recovery windows are long before these accidents happen. But Boeing saw these software issues before planes crashed and people died.
Crazy. So it's the organizational culture, essentially. Like, that's important to take care that it doesn't go in the wrong direction, like in the innovation and so on. And using AI, using data, maybe to observe some weak signals that are warning you
unobtrusively, and without saying who did what, anonymously, looking all the traces in the digital ether, and collecting that information and processing it, and being trained by humans that are sociologists, experts to understand that data, working with computer scientists in companies like Valamis, that make these algorithms more intelligent, that they could identify these behaviors very quickly.
Thank you for that. I have to say, we talk about data in Valamis a lot. It's one of our key crucial things, and we tend to almost too often think it in from a too narrow perspective, but like what you can achieve with data and with AI, it's actually really broad, coming all the way to like observing the organizational culture and where it might sidestep a little bit from the mission, or even like in these cases, like endangering people's lives as well. So, yeah.
Well, before I forget, I want to
Yeah.
mention something before we close out. Remember when we were doing this program, I was working at NASA at that time, and Valamis was working with NASA and conducting research on some of these ideas. So we were experimenting with how do we make a company more productive? How do we identify these problems? And remember, one of the things that your team did was, how do you curate this knowledge? Because we spend so much time looking for information, right? And we have experts in our organization. We have knowledge within our organization. Now we use a learning platform to capture all that knowledge, to curate it using AI, and rapidly we can get just the right information. We spend an inordinate amount of time searching for the right information because the data is going up exponential. We're bombarding with information, the information age. But curating that and getting just the right information is key. Getting just the right subject matter expert to bring into your team to help solve that problem is incredibly useful and necessary. So just curating that information and making it easier to search, we proved to NASA that they could save tens of millions of dollars easily because people are wasting their time at work searching for the answers.
Yeah, AI plays really big role on that. Like super big, I have to say, and like adding like we talk about searching the like knowledge, searching the information. That's one thing, getting the right information, but also like maybe curating it just for you in your case as well. So there's a huge like potential there.
We learned a lot from working with students, right? And one of the things we learned is that when you have digital dinosaurs like some of the teachers, right? If the platform isn't easy to use, and it's different than what they use. Like back when I was in school, we were using Blackboard, very cumbersome, yada, yada, yada. They will not use it. And what you learn when you do the social analysis of that network is, you know, young kids, it's a generational difference. They want immediate responses. If they're there and their mentors and the experts that are on that platform aren't talking to them, they don't use it anymore.
Yeah.
And so you have to engage everyone. So you could use artificial intelligence to help make it easier for digital dinosaurs like me to learn and use artificial intelligence by having a chatbot that basically queries me and pulls me in and helps me use it. So you want that interface between the human and the technology.
Yeah, exactly. And I think overall, like AI is sort of like making things also easier to use. Like it's sort of like the interface between complexity maybe and the human as well. So,
So we have to train the old, because you have generational differences in an organization. You have to train people to get to use it to help make them more efficient.
Yeah, true. And anyone can ask a question, and when you ask it from AI is there to help you. What advice would you give to companies like ours working at the intersection of learning, technology and innovation as we look ahead for the next 10 years?
You know, we learned a lot by partnering with universities and using students and teams of students to mimic how real companies behave. So you're killing two birds with one stone. You're getting very innovative ideas from students, just like we're doing in this workshop, right? And they're free. They're free for us to use, but they're also, the people are free thinkers. They don't know what they don't know. They're not afraid of trying something. They're going to be the most creative. So you have this thousands of students that you could capture these great ideas from, and let's say you're training them like Boeing was using them to go to work at Boeing. So as they're on these educational programs, they're mimicking how they would work and communicate in industry. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and time training those students before you onboard them into into industry. So I would get these companies that you're working with that are looking for a pipeline of students to develop these educational programs, and you, Valamis, will help them to design a program for these students. And oh, by the way, you will get knowledge on how to build a platform and make it more usable for that industry, for exactly what that company is looking for. Training them in skills that they're going to need when they onboard them, because what Boeing did with that educational program was they looked at it as a win-win, as an investment and not a cost. Because as they were educating those students that wanted to be aerospace engineers and maybe work for Boeing, they were also training them at the same time. And oh, by the way, you can observe them and see which students will be a good fit, not because they have just the technical skills, but because they have the right personality, the right social skills, and the right behaviors that would be a good fit. Because you don't want to hire someone and then fire them. So I would sell that to these large corporations, as you know, that a lot of these large organizations have educational programs, and they work with universities just as social responsibility. And why not make it a win-win situation for you and the company you're working with?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for this chat together. It was a pleasure to have you here.
I always enjoy sitting down with you and listening to you. It's always good to be around smart people, and you get to chat with them and pick their brain a little bit.
Okay, now it's on record. I'm smart, so it's official. So thank you especially for that one. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Charlie, and have a pleasant time here in Finland.
Thank you. I am. Thank you, Jari. Good to see you.
Good to see you.